Hello and good afternoon, Stevie's Motifit, and today I'm going to bring you another video, and I think we'll talk about achieving your stat goals. So pretty much what I'm talking about is when you progress through Wildstar, you're always going to get new gear with additional rune slots, maybe a better rune slot that you want, but with less rune slots, and you're overall trying to achieve pretty much your own stat goal. And for a lot of people, they don't know what that is. I know myself, I have a very clear outline of what that is now, and that's like after being exposed to raids and just seeing the number of values and changing different things during the raid. And one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about in particularly is that I want to just go over how I did it. Like, how did I achieve my stat goals and step-by-step things you need to know and stuff like that. So let's perch ourselves up here. Okie dokie. So first off, I just want to talk about trying to figure out your stats. I want to call this your stat shift. Basically, what's more important, what's second important, what's the least important, and just kind of go over that and how you kind of identify that and kind of how you play around with that. Well, you might say your first and secondary is very important and you have a lot of stuff with that, but you're super lacking on your tertiary, and you do need your tertiary. Now for me, I have prioritized my stats towards rating. So right now I'm really high in brutality, which is giving me assault power. My second right now is finesse, which gives me strike through and critical hit severity, but it's more of the strike through that I'm looking from it. And then my last one is the critical hit rating. And there's a few reasons why my last one is my critical hit rating. And this is kind of how you progress. This is like a talk, like how you progress. You're getting different items that are probably different from other people playing the same class as you, and how you're gonna decide what stats that you need. Like what is your priorities? And I'm just gonna go over my process. So basically, what I did is that I am an armor smith. So what I did personally, since I can make my own armor, is that I made all crafted gear with a crap ton of brutality, with a lot of mixing around with the strike through and a critical hit rating. Now, because I can put the solid stats on it, I put on the solid stats because since it's such low gear, I'm just going to benefit more from it. I'm going to get more into it. And that's why I went with the solid stats. So I was lacking at first with the primary stats, because when you get finesse, you increase finesse, and then you'll get to a point where you'll get bonus strike through. I was just putting flat strike through, so you weren't getting these milestone bonuses. You're just getting the flat stat, which you would see over here. So that's how I first started progressing once I got to level 50. But since I was going through, adventures and dungeons and different instances, I started picking up different gear like the Rocktown armor pants, Berserker Aegis, just different parts of pretty much my gear, like the Fury, Warden Smart Vanguard system, the Daredevil, and once I started, I guess you could call this my base items. Once I started building my base items, basically the items that give me a lot of stats compared to everything else, that's when you have to recognize, like, what is this that's giving you? For example, my Fury gives me a lot of critical hit rating. So basically what this is telling me is that later down on the line, when I really start getting to where I'm trying to get the most amount of my build, I can slack off on critical hit rating because I'm getting the base value, a lot of base value from this, as well as I'm getting a bit of finesse and brutality. So pretty much is that it's helping with my brutality and finesse, but the critical hit rating is going to allow me to slack on Moxie with all my other gear, so I can focus on higher brutality numbers and higher finesse numbers because I'm getting so much critical hit rating. As you can see over here, 28 critical hit rating. Now, as soon as I started seeing this kind of trend of a lot of critical hit rating through my implant support systems and weapon attachments, I was like, okay, you know what? I don't have to focus on Moxie that much. I'm getting a lot of critical hit rating. and I'm getting some pretty good finesse and brutality out of this. So I'm noticing a trend here with my gear. The gear is kind of speaking to me. It's saying, Bodo, you're getting a lot of critical hit out of very few items. Flat stat, it's not going to help your primary stat, but this is going to increase your flat stat, the one that you'll see in your secondary right here, critical hit chance. So I was like, okay, if I was going to craft an item, and if I were to find an item on the auction house, basically what I'm looking for is brutality and finesse. Now, that's what I did. You can see right here, my helmet, for example, 90 brutality, 42 finesse, 3 moxie, 3 critical hit. Now, because I got all of this critical hit over here, I was able to shift it into brutality when I crafted this. I really get a lot of brutality out of it, and a quite good amount of finesse. Same thing with my shoulders. I got a lot of brutality out of it, and I think the shoulders was the last item I've crafted to better fit my stats. So you can see there's a little bit of moxie in there. But yeah, at that time I didn't need the finesse, but this was one of the last items, so just hold off on that. I got the breastplate of the hammer. Now it gives me great finesse. Common theme here, I'm getting brutality and finesse. Great strike through and critical hit rating. So there again, we're getting even more critical hit rating flat stat. So I don't really need a lot of moxie with my stuff. I can benefit more of my brutality and finesse. Once again here, crab ton of brutality. Now it's more even out in finesse and moxie and critical hit rating. Now the reason why you see it like that is that I was going for more of kind of getting all my primary, secondary, and tertiary up all at the same time. I was kind of making gear that would go stat heavy with gear that I already had previous time that was stat heavy. So if I went stat heavy right off the bat with critical hit rating because I got lucky with a lot of gear, then I went really stat heavy on brutality in the end because that's my primary damage output, and I don't need a crap ton of strike through, but I do need strike through. So once I started, developing my gear, I got my Rocktown armor pants, which gave me a crap ton of finesse. I think the only reason I even got this, I got from a greed roll, and there's like no NGs. It was just a bunch of warriors, a spellslinger, and an esper, and we all greed rolled it because none of the warriors wanted it, and I ended up with it. So I got kind of lucky. So right here, I'm getting a little bit of moxie, kind of the same theme of brutality, that 90-70 brutality per item, and I'm getting a lot of finesse here. So this is when I started realizing, okay, I have about 1,000 brutality, had about 500 finesse, and I had roughly about 250, 260, like where I am right now, moxie. And then I started looking at my secondary stats, and I said, okay, you know what, I'm already at 18% critical hit chance. Anything more is going to be very beneficial, but from what stats I'm seeing right now, it's just going to be a waste if I increase that, because I can increase my assault power and my strike through even more, which is more of a benefit. Instead of having a solid critical hit chance of 20%, I wanted to get at least 7% strike through and at least close to 1600 assault power, because that's just going to benefit way more than having a little bit of extra critical hit chance. Now, by doing this, I found items, for example, my Berserker Aegis, which gave me a lot of strike through. So gives you 56 strike through rating and gave me straight assault power. So that increased me a lot. Had my Daredevil from before, a lot of assault power and strike through. That increased it a lot. And then when I started crafting things, I was going for more balance, just getting them all up at the same time, but always prioritizing my brutality and my finesse. And that's when I kind of switched to runes. I was like, okay, so let's see here. I have about 1450 assault power at the time. I had about, I think, 6% strike through, and I think I was around like 17% critical hit chance. It's like, okay, so with my runes here, I have a lot of fusion slots. So I went, okay, I'm going to increase my assault power. I don't want any more hard stat brutality. I just want to get more benefit out of increasing my assault power. So, 13 assault power there, 21 assault power there, so on, so on, so on. I got a lot of assault power in my gear. And then I started adding more critical hits to get my critical up a bit higher. adding a bit of brutality when I couldn't add any assault power, adding strike through, increasing my strike through even more, adding more brutality and critical hit. And I was kind of bouncing force between stats and stats and stats. And then I was like, okay, so I have a lot of assault power now. Now I just want to kind of finish off getting my critical hit, my strike through up as high as I could. So that's what I did. I got my critical hit, critical strike through, and that was kind of like the common theme when I was running out my gear. I want strike through and critical hit, as well as a lot of assault power and brutality as you can. So I kind of evened it out. So more strike through there, and brutality, assault power, and finesse. Increasing my strike through a bit, increasing my flat assault power, and increasing my brutality, which will increase my assault power. So yeah, so I started, focusing on hitting these milestones at the same point as not losing stats while achieving these milestones, because when you achieve these milestones, you're going to lose. For example, if I were to try and get, Moxie right here, that plus 25%, plus 25 critical hit rating, and let's say I switched out my Fury for something that had a lot of Moxie in it. Well, 72 critical hit rating on Fury is like the most amount of critical hit you're going to get on an item, because flat Moxie won't give you that much, so it's a waste. So pretty much you have to balance out of getting your stat goals and trying to get in these milestones, because you're going to get to a point where you're going to be like, yeah, that's great, I'll get that extra strike through, but I'm going to sacrifice like 50 critical hit, and that's just not worth it. Or I have to sacrifice 50 flat strike through just to get 40 finesse and get to that milestone. It's just not worth it anymore. And that's when you have to kind of average out your rune slots and what you're crafting, what you can get on the auction house, and really pay attention to how much things are giving you. And that's kind of how you get your general full build. And near the end, I achieved almost 1600 assault power. I'm 7.5 pretty much on strike through. Now I do run a certain amp, overwhelming presence, which technically increases it by 6%, but not actually. To me, it's actual debuff to the mob. So I pretty much have 13, if my math is correct. Yeah, 13%, almost 14% strike through, so that might be capped, because I never get deflected anymore. Like, if I get deflected, it's like 2 out of like 250 strikes. Like, I never get deflected. 40% of I have overall damage. 40% of that overall damage is from a critical, so 18-20% is perfectly fine. I think I had this at 20%. I dropped this off by 2%, and it went from a 40% critical to a overall damage to, I think it was like a 38 or 37% of my overall damage critical hit, which is perfectly fine, because with the strike through increase and my assault power increase, my hits were harder. So even though I crit a little bit less, the hits were substantially harder throughout the entire process. So I was actually increasing my DPS even though I had slightly less critical hits during the duration of the fight. So it's a lot of things and factors, number crunching, that you got to figure this out. Like, this was not easy for me. I think I've wasted about 25 plat just trying to get the perfect stat values. Switching between having like 1500 assault power and having 20% critical hit and almost 8% strike through, and then switching that, trying to switch out my stats so I can get more into my assault power. Like, I've wasted a crap ton of plat just trying to get the perfect combination. So that's why I'm making this video for you people, so you can hear my story and see how my mind worked when I was doing this stuff. And the one thing I really have to stress a lot is that you're not just achieving these goals through your runes, through your stat on your gear. You also have something else you can go to. You have your amps. Your amps boost up your raw stats significantly. You get 3% strike through right here for free. You get 12% critical hit severity right out of here. You increase your assault power by 7.5 by getting all out of, is this 7.5? 2, 3, no, 7.5, yeah, 7.5. And then you increase your critical hit rating by 6% right here. You know, these are a lot of free stats I'm getting. I'm getting dash regeneration, cooldown. If I actually switch my raid gear, you know, I'm still getting the same thing. I'm getting strike through. I'm getting critical hit chance, salt power, critical hit severity. Have my overwhelming presence. I'm increasing the strike through chance of everybody. Uh, you know, there's a lot of things that's really helping me here. You know, I got armor shred, so I'm decreasing their overall resistance. I got connect fury, so I'm increasing my damage by 9% when I'm over 750 connect energy. So there's a lot of things at play, but you really have to go over that you can sacrifice your stat values in some things to make up in your runes or your amps, and it's just a lot of nitpicking going back and forward, trying to get your perfect remedy. Now, there's another way that you can really play for stats with food buffs. For example, this gives me 67 brutality. I have a boost, 61 brutality. Elixirs, well, this is just an elixir of speed, so you don't have to worry about that. There's a lot of things to just increase and give you buffs. Oh, you like that? Brutal Elder Gauntlets. Yeah, baby. There's a lot of things to just increase and add a lot of buffs and staff values that you really have to just watch. Like, what's working? Do I need a bunch of this? Can I just like lean off this a bit and replace that stat amount into something else? Like, what works best? What flows? Am I crit? Is it really necessary to have that much crit, or can I just put into flat damage? You know, it's a lot of tweaking and fine tuning you gotta do, and it's really hard to get a perfect combination off the bat, because if you're limited to you can't craft your own gear, well then you have to wait until stuff comes on the market that you really want, and it gets a little stressful after a while, especially when it doesn't have the rune slots you want, and it's a painstaking process. So that's it. Been going on for too much. All I'm saying is that, you know, look at your abilities. For example, Power Link, which increases damage, or defense crit that reduces amount of damage for even more stat values. Go over your armor, seeing what you have a lot right now and what you can sacrifice and alter. Then apply it to your rune slots and how much you can different your stat value upon your rune slots, and then go to your amps, see how much free stat you can get out of your amps, buffs, boosts, you name it. So once again, Stevious Bodafet, just going over how you can get your desired stat value. And I hope you guys are very successful into achieving your goals with your stats. And I'll see you again. And good night.